see what the audience have to say as well.
Sure.
So, good evening, everybody. Thank you so very much for joining me on my first live. I've had butterflies in my stomach the whole day. I'm really, really nervous. So, it means a world to me that you are here with me and that you're cheering me on and you're going to, you're showing us the support. I'm also extremely grateful, extremely honored, and just happy to have somebody who's been a very important part of my journey here with me on my first live. I have with me Sunanda Pati. Sunanda is a communication specialist. She's an embodied arts based facilitator, and she's the founder of Gaia Comes to the City. So before we start off, I'm just going to, hand over the space to Sunanda for a couple of minutes. Sunanda, why don't you just introduce yourself to the audience, let them know a little bit about yourself, maybe also tell them a little bit about what embodied arts-based facilitation is, so they have an idea of where we're going for the conversation today.
Sure. Thank you, Rekha. Thanks for having me for your first live. I mean, I feel very privileged that you thought of me for this, and I will just reiterate what you already said. I really feel grateful that I have said this to you before, and I'm going to say this to you live. That I'm really grateful that our paths crossed. And, in so many ways, you are because of me and I am because of you. So, it's like the two cannot be separated. With that, I'll just speak a little bit about what I do. So I have two parts to my work life. One is where I come from an advertising and branding background. And I continue to work as a writer. I consult with different places. I've been part of agencies. So that's one part of my work. So I'm a copywriter. The other part of my work is as a facilitator. So when I say embodied arts facilitation, I think what I mean is for people to be able to access deeper parts of themselves, not using what they are usually accustomed to use, which is words, but going beyond the conditioning of words. I've used art with crayons, pencil colors, paint. I've used dance. I've used poetry. I've used collages. So it's So basically, I think I'll narrow it down to just art, and art not in the critical sense that we think of, that one needs to be a great artist. It's more to tap into your creative self, and not in a way to get to an outcome, but to understand yourself, your life, your relationships, and your own deeper self better.
Thanks so much, Sunanda, for explaining that. I was very keen that the audience understand what embodied arts-based facilitation is, because I did not know what it was till I met you. And it transformed my life, because I've done therapy so many times in my life, and there were limitations that I personally hit. So it's a personal thing for me. But when I worked with the body, with the movement, with drawing, with writing, there was a whole different level of healing that opened up in front of me. And it was so instrumental in me finding my voice. You've seen me at a point when I had no voice. I know you may remember that that time in that session we had when you gave me instructions, and I was moving to the music, and then you said, use your voice, say something, and I opened my mouth and no voice came. And at the end of it, I crumpled crying, because that was the moment it hit me, just how much I had lost myself and how much I had lost my voice. And the journey back to finding myself and the journey back to reclaiming my voice has been long And it has been a very powerful journey. It has happened, it has unfolded at the way it has unfolded because of a world you introduced me to. And to this day, reclaiming my voice is something I'm very, very passionate about. And when it comes to women, I believe that this is something that is very fundamental to ourselves as human beings. It's fundamental to our leadership. It's fundamental to our presence in all the spaces that we occupy. I often, often when I read statements about, oh, women need to use their voice, women don't speak up, women hesitate to speak up, they struggle to speak up. I have a mixed reaction to it, because on the one hand, I know women speak up; they are the most powerful advocates for people. But at the same time, I get what that message is, that they don't speak up for themselves. So I'm just kind of very curious, because I have a very paradoxical, interpretation of this. What is your instinctive response to a statement which goes, women struggle to speak up, women hesitate to speak up, women don't own their voices?
Thank you for giving that introduction to where we are going to go with this conversation today, Rekha. I think it's a great question, and it is true that it is it gives off a very paradoxical sense. For me, when I hear that question, actually, I get a few emotions. My primary emotion is a deep sense of sadness.
Yeah.
In my earlier days of work, or when I was getting, initiated into this space, in the embodied space, I would often feel a blockage, like as if there's something that's right here or here. And it's interesting I touched this because this is our physical voice as well. So voice as we see it metaphorically, and voice as we see it really, right? So I think when I hear this statement, the first thing that I feel now is a very clear sense of sadness.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I feel is, a deeper understanding of why it might be so, or what makes it so. Given that I have known myself, I have known my friends, I have known people like you, I've heard of so many different narratives of women from across the world, but with similar truths, with similar personal truths.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a very important point you've raised, because we tend to look at ourselves as different populations based on the geographies. Whereas if you really scratch the surface, we have a lot more in common than differences. And that lies in the truths of our experiences. So that's something that resonates very, very deeply with me. So I kind of wonder, and this is again something that comes to me, and I would like to pose this question to you. I often feel that women not using their voices is situational or contextual. And do you think there's any truth to that? And what do you think are the common situations or the contexts in which a woman loses her voice or hesitates to speak up or struggles? And I'm making a differentiation between hesitation and struggling, because hesitation is intentional sometimes. Struggling is when you don't have it together, right? So what do you think, do you think it's contextual? And what do you think are the situations, broad situations, where we lose our voices, or we struggle, or we hesitate?
I think it is indeed contextual, but I think it is also so inherited. What is our context? What is our context? Our context is a hand-me-down from people who have come before us. And in between, I don't know if you remember, but there was this illustration that was doing the rounds very, very commonly, and many women who perhaps would have joined this conversation today would have seen it. Basically, your grandmother's womb, Within that,
Hmm.
your mother was already there, and within that
Yes.
imprint, you were already there. So
Yes.
if that is how biology works, if
Yeah.
that is how our bodies are meant to work across generations, then
Yeah.
a context is actually much wider than we often perceive it to be.
Mm.
And even when you say that, okay, a person might be hesitating to say something, a
Yeah.
woman might be hesitating,
Yeah.
intentional hesitation. It is possible that when she was younger, she may
Yes.
have picked it up from her mother or her aunts, or something in the air, that it is under these
Absolutely.
circumstances that you pull back, you do not
Yes.
speak.
Yes. Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
know,
I agree. That resonates so deeply because we are at a very unconscious level mimicking at a body level, at an emotional level, even before we have found the words to form it. But at a conscious level in the world, what do you think are the broad situations where, like, because I notice that, when I'm with my girlfriends, and this is my journey, I can chatter 19 to the dozen. I don't have a problem talking most of the times. But there are times, like I know in my career, there have been times when I have thought 10 times before I said something, or I wanted to say something but couldn't say something. So, but of course, that's in a work situation, and I know there's a broader perspective to it. So, what do you think in the real world, the physical world, are the situations where women tend to hold back, to pull back, as you pointed out?
so I would like to, like, whether it is to do with work or home,
Hmm.
or if somebody is getting educated somewhere, I think um, two concepts I would like to bring here. One is
Hmm.
patriarchy, the other
Hmm.
is power. See,
Yes.
I mean, a lot of people, I get into these debates with a lot of people where they say, oh, patriarchy is on the sidelines, patriarchy is on the sidelines. Maybe conceptually that is true.
Hmm.
But if you see the way we have, as women, we have to show up in the world.
Yeah.
We have to show up in a man's world.
Yeah.
If I have to go out and if I have to fight, I am not permitted to fight the way I know how to fight.
Yeah.
I would have to fight in the way the man's imprint has been put.
Hmm.
So I feel anywhere there is power struggle, where
Yeah.
women have been silenced,
Hmm.
or they have felt like for example, the boss, right?
Yes.
The boss, with the boss, a woman might remember her own father.
Yeah.
With the boss, the woman might have a very early memory of how probably her school teacher was like.
Yeah.
And if that would, and especially if that would have been a man, or even the kind of masculinity we see, right, could
Hmm.
even be a woman sometimes. But those messages
Absolutely.
which are
Yeah.
sharp, which
Yeah.
are overbearing,
Hmm.
which somehow in a subtextual manner say you are not good enough, you
Hmm.
cannot speak,
Yes.
you are not worthy.
Hmm.
I think those are the situations
Yeah.
where where I think the point is, we come across these situations day in, day out, with our spouses,
Yes.
with male members of the family, with
Yes.
our friends, with our
Yeah.
colleagues. I mean, I think it's so widespread that I
Yeah.
think one way to look at it is to see what is our system telling us when we are faced with a situation like this. And our systems
Absolutely.
always know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's so true because for me, I noticed in my journey, when I practice when I explore and reflect upon my interactions with people, I realize that my perception of power in my mind, in my relationships with people, male or female, has such a significant role to play in whether I speak up or not, or the ease of my speaking up. Like if I perceive somebody who's even younger to me, but if I perceive that person as being more powerful, stronger, better than me, I am very, very cautious. I'm vigilant. I'm actually very vigilant, and I can feel it in my body. And when I don't have that sense with a, say, with the fear, I'm more relaxed. And when I'm speaking to somebody where in my head I think, oh, okay, you are, say, younger to me or lesser in experience, I have to be very mindful to not be condescending to that person, because there is a power dynamic that's going on in our head, which is really hard for us to pull out of our heads, right?
Yeah.
So that's a very that's a very insightful offering that you put up over here. I'm just going to take a quick moment to say hello to Tara Majumdar, who actually said hello a bit of some time back.
That
Tara,
happens to be my
hello.
mom, by the way.
Oh, okay. This is so wonderful. We have two generations on this live. Hello, Auntie. Thank you so much for joining us today. Yeah. So, Sunanda, I have, since we are now talking about power dynamics and the subconscious, I know my experience and I know my example, but I want to broad base this, and you have the bandwidth to broad base this for me. What do you think is a physical cost to a woman for, holding back, for not speaking up, for hesitating, for struggling? Because it's not just, I think what we have identified now is it's not just about us holding our voices down. There is a whole bunch of things going on at the back end. And there has to be a physical cost to this. So what do you think is the, what according to you are the physical manifest, the cost that you've seen in people?
It's been proven, Rekha,
Mm-hmm.
that women actually in a lot of public dialogue,
Yeah.
it's often brought about how stressed women are.
Yeah.
I've
Mm-hmm.
even like men I have dated, men I have been with, they have often been like, in any kind of exchange, they've been
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, women are so stressed.
Yeah.
Then when I began to, you know, join the dots, I
Mm-hmm.
realized why women are stressed. Women
Yeah.
are stressed because we are constantly holding back.
Yeah.
When I have tried to be assertive, I have been called, you are an aggressive woman.
Yes.
And you are so aggressive. And there was a part of me which would flicker with anger
Yes.
when I would hear this.
Yes.
And then I would see everyone, everything around me, and I would be like, maybe that's true. But in
Yeah.
time, I started embracing that. But I think
Mm-hmm.
my point here is, I I had a strain of thought, and which I kind
I
of
think about
lost.
repressing, like you talked about repressing anger and how that manifests in our bodies.
Yeah. So I think number one step is stress. So because of stress, it has been proven that women suffer a lot of autoimmune problems.
Yes, absolutely.
Like what we think of or what we call as lifestyle diseases today, like
Yeah.
PCOD,
Mm-hmm.
PCOS, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
those things.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the reason is stress. I'm not saying all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Your mom has just piped in to say Dr. Gabor May talks about the relationship
Yeah.
between stress and disease in women. Thank you for
Yes,
that.
yes, yes. It's actually Dr. I think she forgot to use that stress on the E. It's actually Dr. Gabor Mate.
Okay,
And
Mate.
he is a French psychoneuroimmunologist. And
Mm-hmm.
he's done a lot of research on
Mm.
trauma in people, trauma in the body.
Yeah.
So a lot of autoimmune diseases, but that's long term. But even short term, Rekha, I think it's a lot of immune system dysfunction.
Absolutely.
Us feeling disturbed at an emotional level.
Yes.
How they say, oh, she's so cranky.
Yeah.
Where is that crankiness coming from is always a question I have.
Absolutely. And also the fact that there are so many women, because, I work as a personal branding strategist and I work with women in the age group of 40 to 50. I am always so amazed at the number of women who are either struggling with autoimmune at some level or are burnt out. They're so burnt out that they have to take time out, pull back, and decompress. And they're actually very scared to get back into the corporate workspace because they say it's too much, I can't deal with it. And when you look at the larger landscape of having to deal with this kind of internalized stress at various spheres of your life, often the cost is a woman's career, and I think that's a cause for alarm for the fact that maybe we have a female labor participation ratio which is really low, which is one of the lowest in the world, and that's a problem for us. And so, Sunanda, quick question, because I know you do a lot of body work, and I see you on your Insta profile, you do so much of work on a day-to-day basis. What can an average woman do to work with her body in simple ways to reclaim herself, to reclaim her voice? It doesn't have to be a big thing, but something small, like if Louise Hay's mirror work, it's small steps every single day you go in the mirror. So do you have 2 or 3 tips that you can offer to our audience for about how they can work with their bodies to release the stress, to deal with all that emotions that they are accumulating and repressing, and the symptoms of it?
Yeah. The very first thing that I will offer is something I myself do. I try to do this every day before I hit the bed and then after I wake up.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give a little bit of a context as to why I'm going to say this.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel a big part of a woman's stress that hides in her body and in her mind has to do with her displacing her locus of control onto someone else or onto something else.
Yeah.
So I think when we say reclamation of body, I think we also mean reclamation of ourself.
Yeah.
So I think what I personally do is I try to remember who I am before I go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And then after I wake up, I try to remember who I am again.
So is that a question you ask yourself? I'm sorry to intervene, but I'm very curious.
Yeah.
Is that a question you ask yourself?
No, I just sit with myself. I breathe.
Okay.
I sit with myself. I breathe. And I say, okay, you've had this journey for so far and you've learned these things.
Yeah.
And, and with that, I often use touch because touch is so powerful.
Yes.
And we often think of touch being touched by another person, but I feel we don't touch ourselves enough.
Absolutely. Yes.
So, just with a gentle form of touch. And if there is nobody to hug, hug you, you hug yourself.
Yes.
So it's basically to feel more and more self-sufficient wherever you are. So
Okay.
this is one thing that I do. Another thing that I do is, the reason I am being a bit cautious about this one is not everybody likes to write. But journaling is something which is very, very helpful.
Yes.
Just keep a diary, make a short entry.
Yeah.
That you just take maybe 5 minutes every day and make an entry. If something made you upset, if something pleased you, who made you upset? What about that interaction was upsetting? It's like things go back into our unconscious if we are not recording them. But if we are recording them, then there is a way for us to kind of have all that information together.
Yeah.
And the third thing, Rekha, is to actually, in our own space, use our voice.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. Do you want to elaborate a little bit? I know we just hit our time, but I'm sure we can take a couple of minutes more about just to explore using our voice in our own space. I'm somebody who talks to myself all the time, as I have a conversation with myself all the time. So I get what you're talking about, but for people who don't do it, for people, because we also say, oh, you're talking to yourself, you're crazy. There's that, oh, you're crazy label that can very automatically come to you when it's not crazy. It's perfectly okay to talk to yourself. So I would love for you to elaborate a little bit more on how do we talk to ourselves in our space, in our time, so that we are comfortable with our voices.
So I would say, like what I sometimes do is I don't even really talk to myself in the sense of, oh, Sunanda, listen to this, blah, 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 right? Sometimes I just throw my voice. Like I
Yeah,
just do something like, like, I mean, how does my voice feel to me?
yeah,
Is it too much?
yes.
Like, I'll tell you this, Rekha. It has hurt me so many times. I'm bringing this here because I know many women might be able to relate.
Yeah.
There are so many people who have told me, "Oh, you laugh so loudly. My God, your laughter is like." And I laugh loudly. I'm like, what the hell? This is funny. Let's laugh. So, I think it's also a way to just, at some level, block out all the voices
Mhm.
and say, and this is an everyday practice, and to
Yes.
just say, yeah, this is my laughter. I am
Yes.
okay with how I laugh.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's actually like accepting yourself, like trying yourself out. It's like I often think of it, all the three things that you talked about resonates. Sitting with myself, the last thing in the night and the first thing in the morning, in the stillness, just being with myself and allowing pieces of my being to just, come to the surface. That is one. When you talked about journaling, I journal extensively, but the one thing I do every single night, even if it's at 1 or 2 in the morning, I write an email to myself. I will write an email which says, Dear Rekha, and I will write whatever comes to my mind. And over a period of months, I have realized that there's so much in that email that comes up because there's so much of reflection. There is so much of, it's also an opportunity for me to say, I'm proud of you. I love you. You're so fabulous. I'm so excited you're doing this. Or don't worry if it didn't work out. We'll do better next time. It's really nice. And the third part, the third thing that you talk about, trying out our own voices. It's like how you go. If you were to buy a dress, you would try it on and you would make sure the fit is right before you went out into the world or wore up into a party. Why would we not do it with our bodies and our voices and the attributes of us? It's so important for us to familiarize ourselves with our body and our voices. So that's such a powerful exercise. I really, really hope this makes a big difference to the audience. And I think we've kind of run out of time, but the good news is Sunanda's going to be back soon. So thank you so much for joining me today, Sunanda. Thank you so much for all that you've shared. Thank you for exploring this topic with me. This has been a very sensitive topic for me, and I am just so grateful that you were here and we can talk about this because you already have context to my journey. I don't have to, it's easier for me to talk to somebody who knows. And I'm very grateful and I'm so excited about our next conversation. In the meantime, I will be back again next Friday with another speaker who's going to be talking about women, leadership, and purpose. And this is somebody who has walked that talk. So next Friday, 6:30, please come back, everybody. I need your love. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.